Welcome everyone to our special Bookaccino Live Fall Preview Evening program. We like to do this program for the people we know who can't make it to join us during the day. So we like to do something in the evening for you. Let's get started. We're going to start with some fiction. We're going to begin with Here One Moment by Liane Moriarty. I just got to look at the New York Times bestseller list, and it debuted on the list at number 2. And I love this book. I read it in one day when we were on vacation, and I took a break at the end of the summer. It's over 500 pages, but it goes like this. It is so good. And let me give you a little background. Liane actually got the idea for this book because she was sitting in an airport one time and she says, everybody on this plane is going to die. So I wonder what would happen. I wonder what's going to happen to each of these people. I know, a little gloomy, but let's go. This is what the story's about. Aside from a delay, there will be no problems. The flight's going to be smooth. It's going to land safely. Everyone who gets on the plane is going to get off. But most of all of them are going to be forever changed because on this ordinary, short domestic flight, something extraordinary happens. People learn how and when they're going to die. For some, their deaths are far in the future, nothing to worry about, like age 103. How lovely. And they laugh. But for 6 passengers, their predicted deaths are not far away at all. Now, something happens, and I'm not going to give you a little thing here. Something happens to one of those people. And all of a sudden, it's all over the news and it's all over the internet that this woman said this was going to happen, and it did. So what if you were told you had a certain amount of time left to live? To do things differently? Would you try to dodge your destiny? Confess, I wasn't a huge fan of Liane's last 2 books, but I have to tell you, this one is really terrific, really fun. And I could just picture her sitting in the airport coming up with this idea. It's a Bookreporter bets on selection. It's also a word of mouth prize. So there you go. Next, we've got Sky Full of Elephants by Seba Campbell. So this is on sale now. One day, all of the white people in America walk into the nearest body of water. A year later, Charlie Britton is a Black man living in an entirely new world. Having served time in prison for a wrongful conviction, he's now a professor of electric and solar power systems at Howard University when he receives a call from his 19-year-old daughter, Sydney, who was left behind by her white mother and stepfamily. Traumatized by the event and terrified of the outside world, Sydney has spent a year in isolation in Wisconsin. And desperate for help, she turned to the father she never met, a man she's always resented. Sydney and Charlie meet for the first time as they embark on a journey across a truly post-racial America in search of answers, but neither of them are prepared for this new world and how they see themselves in it. It's a book that's getting a lot of buzz. Next, we've got Tell Me Everything by Elizabeth Strout. So Oprah's latest book club pick. Oh, it's autumn in Maine, and the town lawyer Bob Burgess has become enmeshed in an unfolding murder investigation, defending a lonely, isolated man accused of killing his mother. He also has fallen into a deep and abiding friendship with the acclaimed writer Lucy Barton. Yes, if you've read Elizabeth's books before, you definitely know who Lucy Barton is, who lives down the road in a house by the sea with her ex-husband, William. Together, Lucy and Bob go on walks and talk about their lives, their fears, their regrets, and what might have been. Lucy, meanwhile, is finally introduced to the iconic Olive Kitteridge, now living in a retirement community on the edge of town. They spend afternoons together in Olive's apartment telling each other stories about people they have known, unrecorded lives, Olive calls them, reanimating them, and in the process, viewing their lives with meaning. So here we've got the Pulitzer Prize winning authors, #1 New York Times bestselling author, and you feel like characters from all her different stories are going to come together here. Really, really interesting way to pull a book together. Next, we've got Entitlement by Rumaan Alam. You know him as the New York Times bestselling author of Leave the World Behind. So here we go. Brooke wants. She isn't in need, but there are things she wants. A sense of purpose, for instance. She wants to make a difference in the world, to impress her mother along the way, to spend time with friends and secure her independence. Her job assisting an octogenarian billionaire in his quest to give away a vast fortune can help her achieve many of these goals. It will inspire new desires as well. Proximity to wealth turns out to be nothing less than transformative. What is money really but a kind of belief? So there you go, Entitlement. Next, Counting Miracles by Nicholas Sparks. It's going to be out on September 24th. Tanner Hughes was raised by his grandparents following his grandfather's military footsteps to become an Army Ranger. Before his grandmother passes away, she drops a bombshell, the name of the father he never knew, and where to find him. He sets out for Asheboro, North Carolina to ask around. He's been in town less than 24 hours when he meets Caitlin Cooper, a doctor and single mom. They both feel an immense connection. Meanwhile, 83-year-old Jasper lives alone in a cabin, haunted by a tragic accident that took place decades before. When he hears rumors that a white deer has been spotted in the forest, a creature of legend that inspired his father and grandfather, he becomes obsessed with it. As these carrots orbit each other closer together, none of them is expecting a miracle, but that may be exactly what is about to alter their futures forever. So there's Counting Miracles. Next, we've got Intermetzo, which is coming from Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney is an author that she wrote A Beautiful World, Where Are You? So many titles that readers have come to really love and really make you kind of think. So here we've got this on sale on September 24th. Aside from the fact that they're brothers, Peter and Ivan Kubik seem to have little in common. Peter is a Dublin lawyer in his 30s. In the wake of their father's death, he's medicating himself to sleep and struggling to manage his relationships with two very different women. His enduring first love, Sylvia, and Naomi, a college student for whom life is one long joke. Ivan is a 22-year-old competitive chess player. In the early weeks of his bereavement, he meets Margaret, an older woman emerging from her own turbulent past, and their lives become rapidly and intensely intertwined. For two grieving brothers and the people they love, this is a new interlude, a period of desire, despair, and possibility, a chance to find out how much one life might hold inside itself without breaking. I love this. Looks like a chessboard of what's moving around and how are the pieces going to move around. Next, we've got Playground by Richard Powers. Oops, I'm sorry, went too fast. By Richard Powers, which is coming on September 24th. This book is by the author of the winner of the Pulitzer Prize for the book Over Story. And he is an author that when he looks into a topic, he's going to look into it in a new way, and it's going to provide like really, new ways for us to be thinking about where he's coming from. So here we've got 12-year-old Evie Blue sits at the bottom of a swimming pool in Montreal, strapped to one of the world's first aqua lungs. Ina Ariada grows up on a naval base across the Pacific with art as her only hope. Two polar opposites in an elite Chicago high school bond over a 3,000-year-old board game. Rafi Young will get lost in literature, while Todd Keene's work will lead to a startling AI breakthrough. They meet on the history-scarred island of Makatea in the French Polynesia, whose deposits of phosphorus once helped to feed the world. Now the tiny atoll has been chosen for its humanity's next adventure, a plan to send floating, autonomous cities out into the open sea. But first, the island's residents must vote to greenlight the project or turn the seasteaders away. Imagine that, floating autonomous cities out in the sea. There's times where you read a book like by Richard Powers and you think, where did that idea come from? What was he, thinking as he came up with that topic? Next, we've got A Reason to See You Again by Jamie Attenberg. She's the author of The Middlesteins, and this is coming out on September 24th. The women of the Cohen family are in crisis. Triggered by the death of their patriarch, Rudy, the glue that held them all together, everyone's lives soon take a dramatic turn. Shelley, the younger of the two Cohen sisters, runs off to the West Coast to immerse herself in an emerging and lucrative world of technology. Her sister Nancy gets married at the age of 21 to a traveling salesman with a shadowy lifestyle, while their mother Frida hurls herself into a boozy, troubled existence in Miami, trying to forget the past even as it haunts her. But they each learn in different ways that running from the past can't save you. They must make life-altering decisions about what they want their family to be and what they need to move forward. So there's A Reason to See You Again. And I love that it's got one of those old telephones on it. Remember those kinds of telephones? Remember before we had cell phones? Yes, we had to actually hit the buttons. Before that, we dialed. Next, we've got The Mighty Red by Louise Erdrich, which is coming on October 1st. In Augusta, North Dakota, a collection of people revolve around a fraught wedding. Gary Geist, a terrified young man set to inherit 2 farms, is desperate to marry Kismet Poe, an impulsive lapsed goth who can't read her future but seems to resolve his. Hugo, a gentle red-haired homeschool giant, is also in love with Kismet. He's determined to steal her and is eager to be a homewrecker. Kismet's mother, Crystal, holds sugar beets for Gary's family. In our nightly runs, she tunes into the darkness of late-night radio, sees visions of guardian angels, and worries for the future, her daughters and her own. So there's the Mighty Red. Next, from Sophie Kinsella, we've got a very special book called What Does It Feel Like? And Jodi Picoult's right, it's the bravest book you'll read all year. Those who read the Book Reporter newsletter may have seen me write about this book last week. Sophie Kinsella was diagnosed in 2022 with glioblastoma, a cancer of the brain for which there is no cure. And she knows this. And she goes through chemotherapy, radiation, everything. And when she comes through it, she says that she'd like to share what does it feel like? What does it feel like what she'd gone through? And so she wrote this book. And in it, Evie is a successful novelist who wakes up one day in a hospital bed of no memory of how she got there. Her husband explains that she had an operation to remove the large malignant tumor growing in her brain. As Eve learns to walk, talk, and write again, and as she wrestles with her diagnosis and how and when to explain it to her beloved children, she begins to recall what's most important to her. Long walks with her husband's hand clasped firmly around her own, family game nights, and always buying that dress when she sees it. Because remember, Sophie Kinsella, as a best-selling author of the Shopaholic series. Recounted in brief anecdotes, each one is an attempt to answer the type of most impossible questions recognizable to anyone navigating the labyrinth of grief. But by the same token, there was a piece that was done on her on Nightline that I've actually put in the newsletter last week. She's remarkably upbeat about her life right now, about sharing things with her children. She was getting ready for one of her children's weddings. And the love between she and her husband was just beautiful to sit and watch. And as a result, what sounds like it could be a really sad book is really somebody trying to explain, this is what I went through and this is how I see it. So it's What Does It Feel Like, coming October 8th. Next, Mark Hayden has got Dogs and Monsters. This is by the author of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. It's coming on October 15th. Greek myths have fascinated people for millennia, seeing them in lessons about fate and hubris, in the contingency of existence. Mark Haddon digs into the heart of these ancient fables and sees them anew. These tales cover a vast range, from the mythic to the domestic, from ancient Greece to the present day, from stories about love to stories about cruelty, from battlefields to bed and breakfasts, from dogs in space to doors between worlds, all of them bound together by a profound sympathy and an understanding of how human beings act, think, and feel when they're pushed to the very edge. So let's see what Mark does with this book. Next, we've got Like Mother. This is going to be one of our fall reading giveaway titles, and it is also one of our book group speed dating titles when the last session happened. And I have read half of this book, and it is just so well done. Rumaan Alam says it's a sprawling family saga, briskly told with the lightest of touches and an often surprising sense of humor, and I will completely agree with that. So in Detroit, 1960, Lila Pereira is 2 years old when her angry, abusive father has her mother committed to an asylum. Lila never sees her mother again. 3 decades later, having mustered everything she has, Lila rises to the pinnacle of American media as a powerful, brilliant executive editor of the Washington Globe. Lila unapologetically prioritizes her career, leaving the rearing of her daughters to her generous husband, Joe. Grace, their youngest daughter, feels abandoned. She wishes her mother would attend the PTA meetings, not White House correspondent dinners. And as she grows up, she can't shake her resentment. She wants out from under Lila's shadow. Yet, the more she resists, the more Lila seems to shape her life. Grace becomes a successful reporter, even publishing a best-selling book about her mother. In the process of writing it, she realizes how little she knows about her own family. So well done, and I'm looking forward to interviewing Susan when the book comes out October 29th. going to move something up here. Just give me 1 second. I'm sorry, everybody. To close something that is in the middle of where I'm trying to look. 1 second. Okay. Got Lazarus Man by Richard Price, which is coming on November 12th. He's the author of Lush Life. East Harlem, 2008. In an instant, a 5-story tenement collapses into a fuming hill of rubble, pancaking the cars parked in front and coating the street with a thick layer of ash. As the city's rescue services and media outlets respond, the surrounding neighborhood descends into chaos. At the day's end, 6 bodies are recovered, but many of the other tenants are missing. And Lazarus Man, Richard Price, one of the greatest chroniclers of life in urban America, creates intertwining portraits of a group of compelling and singular characters whose lives are permanently impacted by the disaster. So there's Lazarus Man. Next, from Haruka Murakami, we've got The City and Its Uncertain Walls, coming on November 19th. And this is a long-awaited novel from him, his first in 6 years. And he's revisiting a town that his readers will remember, a place where a dream reader reviews dreams and where our shadows become untethered from ourselves. The City and Its Uncertain Walls is a love story, a quest, an ode to books and to the libraries that house them, and a parable for these strange post-pandemic times. So I think it's a very interesting cover. See the people, it's funny, when I first look at it, I only see the clock up on top. And now as I'm looking more, I'm seeing the people behind. It's very interesting with covers sometimes, what draws your eye first. Next, we've got The Latest Lie of All, coming from Gillian Cantor on December 3rd. Fledgling actress Amelia Grant is at rock bottom when offered the opportunity of a lifetime to star in a biopic about the world-renowned romance author Gloria Diamond, who used her own tragic love story as inspiration for her best-selling books. To prepare for the role, she'll spend a week with Gloria at her secluded Washington estate. Chance to get out of LA, away from her treating ex-boyfriend, and to make her recently deceased mother proud. However, excitement is short-lived when she actually meets Gloria, who is cold, verging on rude, and mostly unavailable. Not for Gloria's frustratingly handsome son, Will, the visit might be a complete waste of her time. When Amelia stumbles upon a secret from Gloria's past, she realizes Gloria's life story is more fiction than fact, and the movie's filming date is drawing near. She has to decide how much she's willing to sacrifice to uncover the truth. So there we've got The Greatest Lie of All. Next, we've got Rental House from Wiki Wang, and it's coming on December 3rd. So Kiru and Nate are college sweethearts who marry despite their family differences. Kiru's strict Chinese immigrant parents demand perfection, while Nate's rural white working class family distrusts his intellectual ambitions and his foreign wife. Some years into their marriage, the couple invites their families on vacation. At a Cape Cod beach house and later at a luxury Catskills bungalow, Carew, Nate, and their giant sheepdog navigate visits from in-laws and unexpected guests, all by wondering if they have what it takes to answer the big questions. How do you cope when your spouse and your family of origin clash? How many people and dogs make a family? And when the pack starts to disintegrate, what can you do to shepherd everyone back together? Now, I looked at this book is coming out on December 3rd. That means that everyone will have already been through Thanksgiving and dealing with family. And this will be on the cusp of thinking about the other holidays, Christmas and Hanukkah, that are coming on the horizon. So just think about this. How do those families all get along? And what is he going to share us in that rental house? Let's do some historical fiction. First book was really interesting to me, Catherine the Wright Sister by Tracy Anderson Wood. I mean, really, we've heard of Wilbur and Orville. Did you think there was anybody else in the family? I didn't think so. Engineers across the world were puzzling over how to build powered flying machines, and Wilbur and Orville Wright wanted in on the challenge. But their younger sister, Catherine, knew they wouldn't do it out without her. The 3 siblings made a pact. The 3 of them would solve the problem of human flight. As her brothers obsessed over blueprints and risked life and limb testing new models, Catherine became the mastermind behind the scenes of their inventions. And in 1903, the Wright brothers made their first controlled, sustained flight of humankind. But at the height of their success, tragedy wrenched the Wright family apart and forced Catherine to make an impossible choice that would haunt her for the rest of her life. I think this sounds extremely interesting. As somebody who has been down to North Carolina on the Outer Banks, where the Wright brothers did their first flight, I'm really curious if any mention of this is made anywhere in the museum. Sort of when I was there with my kids, I was really thinking about corralling them and figuring out what exhibits might interest them. Sort of like to go back now and see if there's any mention of this. And if anybody knows if there is, do drop me a note and let me know. Next, we've got A Place to Hide by Ronald Balsam, which is out this week. Theodore Teddy Hartigan is a scion of wealthy Washington, D.C. family who placed him in a comfortable job at the State Department and a placid diplomat's career. In 1938, as Hitler's rise continues, Teddy is reassigned to the U.S. consulate in Amsterdam to replace fleeing staff. His job is to process visa applications, and by 1939, refugees from Nazi-conquered Poland, Austria, and other countries are desperate to secure safe passage to America. When Teddy and his girlfriend Sarah are introduced to an orphaned young girl named Katie, who has been abandoned on the grounds of a nursery school, they agree to adopt her. And Teddy makes the dangerous and selfless decision to join with the underground groups and use his position at the consulate to rescue those with no other avenue of escape. Such an interesting story from the author of Once We Were Brothers. Next, we've got The Wilds, a novel in 5 acts. I love that, 5 acts, not 5 chapters, 5 acts, by Louis Bayard, who you know is the author of The Pale Blue Eye and Jackie and Me. In September 1892, Oscar Wilde and his family have retreated to the idyllic Norfolk countryside for a holiday. His wife, Constance, has every reason to be happy. 2 beautiful sons, her own work as an advocate for feminist causes, and a delightfully charming and affectionate husband and father to her children, who also happens to be the most sought-after author in England. But the arrival of an unexpected house guest, the aristocratic young poet Lord Alfred Douglas, Constance gradually, and then all at once, comes to see that her husband's heart is elsewhere, and the growing intensity between the 2 men threatens the whole foundation of their lives. So there you've got The Wilds. Next, we've got The Love Elixa of Augusta Stern by Linda Cohen-Loignan, which is coming on October 8th. On the cusp of turning 80, a newly retired pharmacist, Augusta Stern, is adrift. When she relocates to Rowlantondo Springs, an active senior community in southern Florida, she unexpectedly crosses paths with Irving Rivkin, the delivery boy from her father's old pharmacy and the man who broke her heart 60 years ago. She's still haunted by the mistakes of her past. What happened all those years ago? And how did her plan involving her great aunt Esther's most potent elixir go so spectacularly wrong? Did Irving ever truly love her, or was he simply playing a part? And can Augusta reclaim the magic of her youth before it's too late? This is going to be a fall giveaway, one of our fall reading giveaway titles when it comes out. Also, Linda is going to be one of the authors at the Morristown Festival of Books in a couple of weeks on October 19th. I say for any of you in the New York area who are looking to come out and meet some authors, I'm going to be there moderating 3 panels. Really, really a fun event. And Linda will be in conversation, moderated by someone in my book group, which really makes this fun for me. Next, we've got some thrillers and mysteries, and oh, have we got some good ones. We start with The Night We Lost Him by Laura Dave, which just came out this week. You know her as a #1 New York Times bestselling author of The Last Thing You Told Me. This is a Bookreporter Bets on selection. I already did an interview with Laura that's going to run next week. It's a word-of-mouth contest title. It's a fall reading title, and it's one that her publisher singled out when we were doing the book group speed dating event last spring. So here's what we've got. Liam Noon was many things to many people. To the public, he was an exacting, self-made hotel magnate fleeing his past. To his 3 ex-wives, he was a loving, albeit distant family man who kept his finances flush and his families carefully separated. To Nora, he was a father who often loved her from afar, notably from a cliffside cottage perched on the California coast from which he fell to his death. The authorities ruled the death an accident, but Nora and her strange brother Sam have other ideas. In fact, Sam has convinced Nora to work with him and figure out what happened that night. As Nora and Sam form an uneasy alliance to unravel the mystery, they start putting together pieces of their father's past, and they uncover a family's secret that changes everything. The heart of this book is a love story, but as you read it, you realize it's more than one, and it's how things in the past have influenced people here in the present. It's really well done. I'm excited to see she's doing a big tour. She's all over the place. I'm really excited to see people coming to read this book right now. There's so much love for it out there. Next, we've got We Solve Murders from Richard Osman. He is the New York Times bestselling author of the Thursday Murder Club. So we got Steve Wheeler. He's enjoying his retired life. He does an odd bit of investigation work, but he prefers his similar routines: the pub quiz, his favorite bench, his cat waiting for him at home. His days of adventure are over. Adrenaline is his daughter Amy's job now. Yes, Amy thinks adrenaline is good for the soul. Working in private security every day is dangerous. She's currently on a remote island protecting mega best-selling author Rosie D'Antonio until a dead body and a bag of money means trouble in paradise. So who does she send an SOS to? But the only person she trusts. As a thrilling race around the world begins, can Amy and Steve outrun and outsmart a killer? There you go. We Solve Murders. This is Bad Liar by Tammy Hogue. It's coming on September 24th. Just finished reading this last weekend. Tammy's been away from writing for a good long time right now. She had an accident, took time to recover. And I have to say, this book was really, really well done. You know, the kind of book like you can't wait to pick it up and see what's going to happen next. But at the same time, you remember what's happening. Sometimes you get lost in a book and you're like, well, where was I and what was happening? This was very clear for me as I was sitting and reading, and I really enjoyed the characters. So what we've got is a murder victim is dumped at the dead end of a lonely country road. And it's not the way Sheriff's Detective Nick Forcade decided to start his week. His only lead takes him to the family of a hometown hero suddenly gone missing. Mark Mercier left his home for a weekend hunting trip and hasn't been seen since. And meanwhile, Sheriff's Detective Annie Broussard begins her first day back on the job after suffering a brutal attack by taking on the case of Lynn Fortunat, a mother desperate to find her own grown son who's a recovering drug addict. Robbie's been missing for 8 days, but the local police have no interest in the case. He's a drug addict. What do we care? He's gone. Annie searches for Robbie, and Nick investigates Mark's disappearance. It quickly becomes apparent that nothing is as it seems in the life of either man. Very, very interesting the way the plot goes back and forth. Hero, victim, what ends up happening. So well done. Next, we've got The Forest of Lost Souls by Dean Koontz, which is coming on September 24th. So, raised in the wilderness of her late great uncle, Vida is a young woman with almost a preternatural affinity for nature, especially for the wolves that also call the forested mountains home. Formed by hard experience, by love and loss, and by the prophecies of a fortune teller, Vida wants peace. If only the nearby Kettleton County didn't cast such a dark shadow. It's where Jose, the love of Vida's life and a cherished local hero, died in a tragic accident. That's the official story. But Vida has reasons to doubt it. The truth can't be contained for long, nor can the hungry men of power in Kettleton who want something too. That Vida, like Jose, disappear forever. One by one, they come for her, prepared to see their plans through to their evil end. Vida is no less prepared for them. So there you've got The Forest of Lost Souls. And with Dean, you know this is going to go off on some tangent. On October 1st from Frida McFadden, we've got The Boyfriend. Is he the man of your dreams or your worst nightmare? Little background on Frida McFadden. She's been writing romance or standalone thrillers like this for years. She's been doing this, and she was a doctor. Frida McFadden is a pseudonym for her. She left medical practice at the end of last year. Can you just imagine walking in and saying, hey, I'm out of here. I'm a best-selling writer, and I'm going to be writing a lot of books next year. Well, that's exactly what ended up happening. So here's the story on this one. Sydney Shaw has terrible luck with dating. She's seen it all. Men who lie on their dating profiles, men who stick her with the dinner bill, and worst of all, men who can't shut up about their mothers. She finally hits the jackpot. Her new boyfriend is utterly perfect, charming, handsome, and works as a doctor at the local hospital. She's swept off her feet. Then the brutal murder of a young woman, the latest in a string of deaths across a coast, confounds police. The primary suspect, mystery man who dates his victims before he kills them. Sydney should feel safe. After all, she's dating the guy of her dreams, but she can't shake her own suspicions that the perfect man may not be as perfect as he seems because someone is watching her every move, and if she doesn't get to the truth, she may be the killer's next victim. So you've got that very eerie cover. Tie with blood. Okay, we've got a Mistletoe Mystery from Nita Prose. It's a short story, actually a novella, with her character, the maid. And many of our readers we know love the maid and are really anxious to see what happens for Molly next. So Molly Gray's always loved the holidays. Molly was a child. Her gran went to great lengths to make the season merry and bright, full of cherished traditions. The first few Christmases without Gran were hard on Molly. But this year, her beloved boyfriend and fellow festive spirit, Juan Manuel, is into making the season Molly's most joyful yet. But when a secret Santa gift exchange at the Regency Grand Hotel raises questions about who Molly can and cannot trust, she dives headfirst into solving her most consequential and personal mystery yet. She has a bad feeling about things, and she starts to wonder, has she yet again mistaken a frog for a prince? So there you go. Short novel. Nita's got a new full-length book coming next April. Next, we've got the sequel by Jean Hanff Korelitz. I don't know how many of you read The Plot, the best-selling a book that came out where they've got a author there who has stolen a manuscript from one of his students who has passed away, and he all of a sudden is dead. So what happened really there? So here's his wife, Anne Williams Bonner, and she's taking care of business. That's to say, she takes care of her husband, best-selling novelist Jacob Finch Bonner, and she's laid to rest all those anonymous accusations of plagiarism that tormented him. Oh, yes, they've all gone away, and she's living the contented life of a literary widow, enjoying her husband's royalty checks in perpetuity. And for the second time in her life, a work of fiction intercedes, and this time it's her own debut novel, The Afterword. She publishes her book and indulges in her own literary acclaim, and she begins to receive excerpts of a novel she never expected to see again, a novel that should no longer exist. Someone out there knows far too much about her late brother, her late husband, and just possibly Anna herself. What does this person want, and what are they prepared to do? She's come too far, and she's worked way too hard to lose what she values most, her soul and uncontested right to her own story. It's going to be a Bookreporter Bets on selection. I'm going to be interviewing Jean tomorrow, and I'm very much looking forward to, did you always know you're going to write a sequel when you wrote The Plot? And lots more. She's also going to be in Morristown, and I am going to be interviewing her there on the 19th, as well as tomorrow. Next, we've got Identity Unknown from Patricia Cornwell coming on October 8th. Summoned to an abandoned theme park to retrieve a body, Dr. Kay Scarpetta is devastated to learn the victim is a man she once had an intense love affair with. The murder scene is bizarre, with a cropped circle of petals around the body, and Giordani's skin is strangely red. Scarpetta's niece Lucy believes he was dropped from an unidentified flying craft. Scarpetta knows an autopsy can reveal the dead's secrets, but she's shocked to find that her friend seems to have deliberately left her a clue. So investigators are torn between suspicions of otherworldly forces and of Giordano himself. Scarpetta detects an explanation closer to home that in her mind is far more evil. Now, we always say that when we start doing these presentations and I start doing different themes and things like that, we should really run a contest at the end and see how many of the themes people were picking up on. Okay, so what do we got? One is a man she once had an intense love affair with. How many times did we hear that tonight, folks? So one of these times when we do this, we are definitely going to put together a little game that people can say, how many times did it happen? What books did it happen in? And to see if you're paying attention, but more than that, just to see, have some fun with what's going on. Next, we've got The Great Hippopotamus Hotel from Alexander McCall Smith coming on October 15th. The rolling hills just outside Gaborone are surrounded by a group of acacia, I'm probably going to do this wrong, acacia trees. There's the great Hippopotamus Hotel with spacious rooms overlooking the Botswanian countryside and a fine and loyal staff. The hotel has served as a refuge to weary travelers for many years. But a sudden string of misfortunes threatens to ruin the hotel's reputation. Food poisoning befalls an unlikely diner. Laundry mysteriously disappears from the drying line. A scorpion stings one of the guests. Appears that something foul is afoot. And who we've got? Mademoiselle Ramos, I'm going to do this, Ramatusi and Makutusi are on the case to find out who could be responsible for these unfortunate events. The advance at first seems clear, especially when they find out that Violet Sapotho is involved. I'm so sorry, folks. Some of these are tough. That they dig deeper, they realize that solution is not as simple as it initially seems. Do you ever notice in a thriller that things are not as simple as they seem? Yeah, it's like my day. I get up, I'm going to do things one way, and then the day falls apart. It's not as simple as it seems. Okay, then we've got The Waiting by Michael Connelly coming on October 15th, and this is a Ballard and Bosch novel. So Renee Ballard and the LAPD's open unsolved unit get a hotshot DNA connection between a recently arrested man and a serial rapist and murderer who went quiet 20 years ago. His father was the pillowcase rapist, responsible for a 5-year reign of terror in the City of Angels. But when Ballard and her team move in on their suspect, they encounter a baffling web of secrets and legal hurdles. Meanwhile, Ballard's badge, gun, and ID are stolen. She works the burglary alone, but her mission draws her into unexpected danger. So she knocks on the door of who else? Harry Bosch. At the same time, Ballard takes on a new volunteer to the cold case unit, Bosch's daughter, Maddie, who's now a patrol officer. But Maddie has an ulterior motive for getting access to the city's Library of Lost Souls, a case that may be the most iconic in the city's history. So there you've got The Waiting. It's a beautiful cover. I guess we're waiting for a really great wave there. Next from Robert Dugoni, who's a longtime friend of the site, we've got Beyond Reasonable Doubt, which is coming out on October 22nd. When Jenna Burstein, the disgraced wunderkind CEO of a controversial biotech company, is accused of murdering her former partner and lover, she turns to Seattle attorney Kira Dugan to defend her. Kira is more than a master chess player who brings her intuitive moves into court. She's Jenna's childhood friend. But considering their history, Kira knows that where Jenna goes, trouble follows. With only circumstantial evidence against Jenna, Kira is willing to bury any trepidation she might have to defend a woman she believes to be innocent this time. As the investigation gets underway and disturbing questions arise, Kira puts her trust in a client who swears that she's telling nothing but the truth. If this is all just another devious game, Kira might be working to set a murderer free. So let's see what happens in Beyond Reasonable Doubt. And actually, there's a quote from Bookreporter on the front cover of the book, which I truly love. Next, we've got In Too Deep from Lee Child and Andrew Child. Lee Child has turned the series over to his brother, Andrew. This is another Reacher novel. Jack Reacher wakes up alone, in the dark, handcuffed to a makeshift bed. His right arm has suffered some major damage. His few possessions are gone. He has no memory of getting there. The last thing he can recall is a car in which he hitched a ride, getting run off the road. The driver was killed. His captors assume Reacher was the driver's accomplice and patch up his wounds as they plan to make him talk. And that plan will backfire spectacularly. And you just know if it's Reacher, what's going to be really surprising is he doesn't have change of his shirt and a toothbrush. I mean, he's really showing up with absolutely nothing this time. His few possessions are even gone. That's a big one. Next, from Paula Hawkins, we've got The Blue Hour. And I had the pleasure of meeting Paula earlier in the spring, where she was in from the UK, and she was talking about this book, and she was inspired because she was on a vacation and she actually got hurt, and she was looking out at the sea, and she was doing a lot of thinking because she really couldn't do much else. She couldn't move, and she was weaving a story together. You know her as a New York Times bestselling author of Girl on the Train. This is a really interesting story. It's coming on October 29th. Welcome to Eris, an island with only one house, one inhabitant, one way out. unreachable from the Scottish mainland for 12 hours each day. It's a nice home to Vanessa, a famous artist, notoriously unfaithful husband disappeared 20 years ago. It's now home to Grace, a solitary creature of the tides, content in her own isolation. She's a doctor as well. When a shocking discovery is made in an art gallery far away in London, a visitor comes calling, and the secrets of Eris threaten to emerge. What happens in that art gallery is there's a piece of art and has a bone in it, and they realize it's a human bone. And then they go to trace whose bone is that. Does a really good job. I know we've seen a lot of the locked room mystery kind of a thing where somebody's on an island, they can't get off, or they're locked in someplace. It's interesting the way this one plays through. I don't know if I'd want to be in an island where I could only get off 12 hours each day. I'm not sure that I would consider that an ideal place to be. So there's the Blue Hour. Next, from Sharon Verts, we've got the Graze of Truth. I've enjoyed and talked about two of Sharon's last books. She does a really good job of writing historical fiction, and she really goes and gets to the heart of the stories when she's going out and doing her work and doing her research. I started reading this one the other day, and once again, I looked up and I was on page 60, and I was still like ready to sit and keep reading. And I was like, no, you really need to go to work. This is not coming out till October 29th. So it takes place in Reconstruction era Baltimore. Members of the city elite keep turning up dead. When Jane Grey, Wharton's husband Ned, dies unexpectedly while overnighting at his brother's home, Jane has no reason to question the circumstances of his death. But on a visit to the same house a few weeks later, both Jane and her daughter fall gravely ill, and she starts to suspect foul play. Though a trained chemist and former nurse, she's haunted by a history of delusion, loss, and institutionalization. As the unexpected and devastating deaths begin to multiply, her grip on reality starts to slip. When a respected Army officer falls terribly ill after visiting the Whartons' Baltimore home, her greatest fear has become all too real. The time has come to act, but who will believe her, and can she even trust her own mind? I'd once again say that Sharon has done a beautiful job she really loves history. She's restored a couple of beautiful places down in the Virginia area. One is called Selma. If you look it up, you'll see the huge restoration she did on this place. And she's just enamored with writing historical fiction that reads like there because it was from the places that she actually knows. So coming on October 29th. Next from Louise Penny, also on October 29th, we've got The Gray Wolf. Relentless phone calls interrupt the peace of a warm August morning in Three Pines. Though the tiny Quebec village is impossible to find on any map, someone has managed to track down Armand Gamache, the head of homicide at Suerte, as he sits with his wife in their back garden. She watches with unease as her husband refuses to pick up, though he clearly knows who's on the other end. When he finally answers, his rage shatters the calm of their quiet Sunday morning. That's only the first in a series of strange events that begin The Gray Wolf. A missing coat, an intruder alarm, a note for Gamache reading, "This might interest you," a puzzling scrap of paper with a mysterious list, and then a murder. All propel Chief Inspector Gamache and his team towards a terrible realization. Something much more sinister than any one murder or any one case is fast approaching. Next, we've got A Very Bad Thing by J.T. Ellison coming on November 1st. With a number of hit titles and a highly anticipated movie tie-in, celebrated novelist Columbia Jones is at the top of her game. Fans around the world adore her, but on the final night of her latest book tour, one face in the crowd makes the author collapse. And by the next morning, she's lying dead in a pool of blood. Columbia's death shocks the world and leaves Darian, her eldest daughter, her daughter and publicist, reeling. The police have nothing to go on at first, but then details start to emerge, pointing to the author's illicit past. Turns out many people had motive to kill Columbia, and with a hungry reporter and frustrated cop on the trail, her secrets won't stay buried long. But how many lives will they shatter as the truth comes out? So there we've got A Very Bad Thing. Next, we've got The Author's Guide to Murder by Beatrice Williams, Lauren Willig, and Karen White. Each of these authors writes their own books under their own names and very, very different writing. But they come together to write these books that come out probably once every 2 years. And this year it's coming out on November 5th. I interviewed the three of them a couple of years ago, And it was really funny because I asked one question and that was it for the night. The three of them were just in conversation with one another and having a grand old time. So they joke with me that they like me to interview them again, and they've promised me I can ask more than one question. Lisa Unger has said about this book, it's a pure delight from start to finish. Williams, Wiggins, and White are at the top of form in this clever, engrossing whodunit with a heart. It's out November 5th. So there's a sensational murder in the historic Castle Kinloch, a goth fantasy of gray granite, a remote island in the Highlands of Scotland. Literary superstar Brett Saffron Presley has been found dead under bizarre circumstances in the Castle Tower's booklined study. Years ago, Presley purchased the castle as a showpiece for his brand and to lure paying guests with a taste for writerly glamour. Now it seems the castle's done him in, or possibly one of the castle's guests has. Detective Chief Inspector Yuan McIntosh, a local with no love for literary Americans, find himself with the unenviable task of extracting statements from three American lady novelists. Why did these authors really come to the castle? So there you've got the author's guide to murder. I love the pen, the ink, and what's a little revenge among friends. To Die For by David Baldacci is a 1620-man thriller, and it's going to be on sale on November 12th. Travis Devine has become a pro at accomplishing any mission he's given. But this time, it's not skills that send him to Seattle to aid FBI in escorting orphan 12-year-old Betsy Adome to a meeting with her uncle, who's under investigation for RICO charges. Instead, he's hoping to lay low and keep off the radar of an enemy, the girl on the train. But as Devine gets to know Betsy, questions begin to arise about the death of her parents. Devine digs for answers, and what he finds points to a conspiracy bigger than he ever could have imagined. Might finally be time for Devine and the girl on the train to come face to face. He's going to find out the difference between his friends and his enemies, and in some cases, they might be both. Really like this cover too. Next, we've got Shell Gains by Bonnie Kistler. Bonnie's an author whose books I've enjoyed. She just has this way of writing. She's a former lawyer. I guess you're never a former attorney, former practicing attorney. I just like the way she puts a story together. And the byline on this one is Who Says Confession is Good for the Soul? So Jules' mother, Kate, is a self-made real estate developer, a grand dame in Florida society, and a power broker in Florida politics. It wasn't easy for Julie to grow up in the shadow of such a dynamo, but she loves her mother. She and her husband, Eric, are thrilled when Kate marries her long-lost high school sweetheart, a salt-of-the-earth man named Charlie. But on their wedding night, Kate calls the police in hysterics to report that Charlie just confessed to a notorious unsolved crime from decades before. Charlie says Kate imagined it. Eric says that Kate has dementia, and the FBI says Charlie couldn't possibly have committed that crime. Julie doesn't know what to believe. Is her mother losing her mind, or is that sweet, lovable Charlie gaslighting Kate to get control of her fortune? Julie tries to navigate through this maze of paranoia and mind games. Cracks start to develop in her own marriage as it seems that Eric is keeping secrets. Oh my gosh, so many secrets. Do some memoirs, biographies, and other nonfiction, talking about secrets coming out. Here you go. I'm going to do Bone of the Bone first, which is by Sarah Smarsh. It's out already. She is the National Book Award finalist for her last book, which was Heartland, which is one of my bets on selections. And here she's bringing her graceful storytelling and incisive critique to the challenges that really define our times: class division, political fissures, gender inequality, environmental crisis, media bias, the rural-urban gulf. She's a journalist who grew up on a wheat farm in Kansas, and she was the first in her family to graduate from college. She's long focused on cultural dissonance that many in her industry neglected until recently. And this thought-provoking collection of more than 30 of her highly relevant, previously published essays from the past decade, she demonstrates a life and career steeped in the issues that affect our collective lives, our collective future. I've been reading these, and it's interesting to see her perspective from where she came from. And, I always say that what I really love is having seen America, like across America, not just the two coasts, through the eyes of our readers, through travels that I've done through the years. I love to hear from somebody who's lived in the Midwest, writing stories like this on what it was like to be a daughter of the working class. And then where she looks at other stories, other topics as well. She's an extremely wonderful writer. Extremely wonderful, but that's really bad English. Okay, this one is for pure fun, folks. I, thank God, have children that are old enough that we never had to deal with the elf on the shelf. But here is the Elf on the Shelf family cookbook. I kid you not, with 50 elf-tastic recipes. I mean, seriously, I cannot make this up. Playful elf ideas, games, activities, and more. Maybe it will tell you where to hide the elf. Seriously. This is a phenomenon for families around the world, and every year, millions of Scout Elf helpers fly in from the North Pole to join the Christmas cheer with great excitement every day as parents watch their children discover their elves' landing spots. Many families integrate their Scout Elf friends into food and kitchen traditions, with the holidays filled with laughter and fun as little and big hands tinker with ingredients, stirring, mixing, and pouring their hearts into something wonderfully delicious. So this cookbook is presented by an exceptional team of Mrs. Claus Sweet Shop Elves who share their favorite holiday recipes along with ingredient lists, tips, tools, and favorite recipes you'll like to incorporate into the Elf on the Shelf tradition. And please, could I just tell people where to hide the elf? My book group, many times they're sitting there going, where are you going to put the elf tonight? So ends up in the freezer a lot of times as well. Next, we've got First in the Family by Jessica Hope, and it's coming out. It's out now. I'm sorry. First year of quarantine, drug overdoses spiked, highest ever recorded, and Jessica's cousin was one of them. I never learned the true history of substance abuse disorder in my family, she writes. People just disappeared. At the time of her cousin's death, she'd been in recovery for nearly 4 years. She hadn't told anyone. In First of the Family, she shares her journey, the first in her family to do so, and takes the reader on a remarkable investigation of her family's history, the American dream, the erasure of BIPOC from recovery institutions and narratives, leaving the reader with an urgent message of hope. We're looking forward to reading this one. Connie by Connie Chung is also out this week. She's a pioneer. In 1969, at the age of 23, this one shy daughter of Chinese parents took her first job at a local TV station in her hometown of Washington, D.C., and soon thereafter began working at CBS as a correspondent. Profoundly influenced by her family's cultural traditions, yet growing up completely Americanized in the United States, she describes her career as an Asian woman in a white, male-centered world. She pulls no punches as she provides a behind-the-scenes tour of her singular life, from showdowns with powerful men in and out of the newsroom to the stories behind some of her career-defining reporting and the unwavering support of her husband, Maury Povich. Nothing is off limits, good, bad, or ugly. And next we've got Does This Taste Funny? This is out this week. It's by Stephen Colbert and his wife, Edie McGee Colbert. It's recipes our family loves. As they explain it, it had its beginnings during COVID lockdown. We're all stuck together. We couldn't go out, so we cooked. We had all 3 kids back under one roof for the first time in a long time, and we had dinner each night as a family. Looking back, cooking together became a major source of entertainment. Now the Colberts invite us into their kitchen around their dining room table, sharing their favorite recipes as well as those of their family and friends. It offers everything from party food to seafood, poultry and meat to desserts and drinks, all tied together with playful dialogue between Steve and Edie, and the gorgeous shots of their food, family, and home. So there you go. Does this taste funny? Next, we've got The She-Wolves by Paulina Bren. It's out this week. First came the secretaries from Brooklyn and Queens, those smart cookies who saw making money, lots of it might be within their grasp. Then came the first female Harvard Business School graduates who were in for a rude awakening because equal degree does not mean equal opportunity. By the 1980s, as the market went into turbo drive, women were becoming plucked from elite campuses to feed the belly of a rapidly expanding beast, playing for high stakes in Wall Street's bad boy culture by day and clubbing by night. She-Wolves, award-winning historian Paulina Bren tells the story of how women infiltrated Wall Street from the swinging 60s to 9/11, starting at a time when no ladies' signs hung across the doors of its luncheon clubs, and more discreetly inside the brokerage houses and investment banks. It's really interesting. My niece works for a firm, and they do mergers and deals, and she was asked, she's a very good golfer, and she was asked to play golf by one of the partners. And he said, I'd really like to be on my team, da, da, da. And the day before he had to sit there and say, sorry, it's a men's only tournament. And I thought, oh, still happening, folks, still happening. Next, we've got Something Lost, Something Gained from Hillary Rodham Clinton out this week. What would you like to sit down with for an impassioned and entertaining conversation with Hillary? That's what you get here. She offers her candid views on life and love, politics, liberty, democracy, the threats we face, and the future within our reach. She describes the strength she draws from her deepest friendships, her Methodist faith, and nearly 50 years she's been married to President Bill Clinton, all with the wisdom that comes from looking back on a full life with fresh eyes. Takes us along as she returns to the classroom as a college professor, enjoys the bonds inside the exclusive club of former First Ladies, and moves past her dream of becoming president and dives into new activism for women and democracy. So there's Something Lost, Something Gained. Next, we've got Be Ready When Luck Happens, and I am so looking forward to this book. It's narrated by Ina Garten, which means I definitely want to listen to the audio. A couple of excerpts of this have been coming out. People magazine had one, somebody else had another. So for the first time, Ina Garten presents an intimate, entertaining, inspiring account of her remarkable journey. Her gift is to make everything look easy. All those meals look easy. Yet her accomplishments have been the result of hard work, audacious choices, and exquisite attention to detail. In her unmistakable voice, no one tells a story like Ina, she brings her past and her process to life in a high-spirited, no-holds-barred memoir that chronicles decades of personal challenges, adventures and misadventures, an unexpected career twist, all delivered with her signature combination of playfulness and purpose. My book club cannot wait to read this book. Next, we've got The Message from Ta-Nehisi Coates, which is coming on October 1st. In the first of the book's 3 intertwining essays, Coates, on his first trip to Africa, finds himself in 2 places at once: Dakar, a modern city in Senegal, and a mythic kingdom in his mind. Takes readers with him to Columbia, South Carolina, reports on his own book banning, but also explores the larger backlash to the nation's recent reckoning with history and the deeply rooted American mythology so visible in that city, a capital of the Confederacy, with statues of segregationists looming over its public squares. And finally, in the book's longest section, travels to Palestine, receives with devastating clarity how easily you are misled by nationalist narratives and the tragedy that lies in the clash between stories we tell and the reality on the ground. It's a best-selling author of Between the World and Me, and this is The Message. Next, Malcolm Gladwell. You know him as the best-selling author of The Tipping Point. Well, here we go. He's back with Revenge of the Tipping Point, Overstories, Super Spreaders, and the Rise of Social Engineering. It's out on October 1st. Why is Miami, Miami? What does the heartbreaking fate of the cheetah tell us about the way we want to raise our children? Why do Ivy League schools care so much about sports? What is the magic third, and what does it mean for racial harmony? In Revenge of the Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell returns for the first time in 25 years to the subject of social epidemics and tipping points, this time with aim of explaining the dark side of contagious phenomenon. Through a series of riveting stories, he traces the rise of a new and troubling form of social engineering. So there's The Revenge of the Tipping Point. From Here to the Great Unknown, Lisa Marie Presley and Riley Keough. In 2022, Lisa Marie Presley asked her daughter to help her finish her long gestating memoir. And a month later, Lisa Marie was dead. The world would never know her story in her own words. Never know the passionate, joyful, caring, and complicated woman who Riley loved and now grieved. Riley got the tapes that her mother recorded for the books, lay in her bed, and listened as Lisa Marie told story after story. Riley knew she had to fulfill her mother's wish to reveal these memories, incandescent and painful to the world, to make her mother known. And it's written in both Lisa Marie and Riley's voices, a mother and daughter communicating from this world to the one beyond as they try to heal each other. So I'm thinking about, as we're going through people, about holiday gifts, things that people might enjoy. I hope you're taking some notes as well. From David Greenberg, we've got John Lewis, A Life, that's coming on October 8th. We know the John Lewis story is born into poverty in rural Alabama. He becomes second only to Martin Luther King Jr.'s contributions to the civil rights movement. He was a freedom writer who helped integrate bus stations in the South, a leader of the Nashville sit-in movement, and the youngest speaker at the 1963 March on Washington, the chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which made into one of the major civil rights organizations. may be best remembered as the victim of a vicious beating by Alabama state troopers at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, where he nearly died. This biography is going to trace his life through the post-civil rights years, where he headed the Voters Education Project, which enrolled millions of African-American voters across the South. So there's John Lewis' life. Next, we've got Framed, Astonishing True Stories of Wrongful Convictions from John Grisham and Jim McCluskey. John is known world over for his best-selling novels, but his real-life passion for justice led to his work with Jim McCluskey of Centurion Ministries, the first organization dedicated to exonerating innocent people who have been wrongly convicted. Together, they offer an inside look at the many injustices in our criminal justice system. Fundamental principle of our legal system is presumption of innocence. But once someone has been found guilty, there is very little room to prove doubt. These 10 stories shed light on Americans who were innocent but found guilty and forced to sacrifice friends, families, and decades of their lives to prison, while the guilty parties remained free. Next, we've got Didion and Babbitts by Lily Anawook, which is coming out on November 12th. Evie Babbitts died on December 17, 2021. Found in the rack, ruin, and filth of her apartment was a stack of boxes packed by her mother decades before. Inside was a lost world that centered on a 2-story rental in a down-the-heel section of Hollywood, 2406 Franklin Avenue, a combination salon, hotbed, living end where writers and artists mix with movie stars, rock and rollers, and drug trash. Was making of one great American writer at that address, Joan Didion. It was also the breaking and then remaking and thus true making of another great American writer, Eve Babbitts. Didion and Babbitts formed a complicated alliance, a friendship that went bad, amity turned enemy, and Didion, in spite of her confessional style, is so little known or understood, she remained opaque and elusive until now. So let's see what Lily does with this. She's the author of Hollywood's Eve. Next, we've got Share Part 1. Yes, Part 1, folks, is coming on November 19th. Part 2 of her memoir will be coming next November. More than 70 years of fighting to live her life on her own terms. She's got her true style coming out in intimate detail in a 2-part memoir. We're going to hear about her as a dyslexic child who dreams of becoming famous. She was raised in often chaotic circumstances, surrounded by singers, actors, and a mother who inspired her in spite of their difficult relationship. Trademark honesty and humor, she's going to trace this diamond in the rough, succeeded with no plan and no confidence, become the trailblazing superstar the world has been unable to ignore for more than half a century. Follows extraordinary beginnings through childhood meeting and marrying Sonny Bono, and reveals their complicated relationship that made them world famous, but eventually drove them apart. I dare you to sit there and think about Cher and not think, I've got you, babe. Okay, so this is Part 1. Part 2 is going to have Greg Allman and the rest in it, folks. Next, we've got Citizen by Bill Clinton, also coming on November 19th. January 20th, 2001, after 30 years in politics, 8 of them as president, he was suddenly a private citizen. He's only 54 years old. He wanted to make meaningful use of his skills, his relationship with world leaders, and all he learned in a lifetime of politics. So shortly after he left the White House, a call came to aid victims of an earthquake in India and hit the ground running. And over the next 2 decades, he would create an enduring legacy of public service from Indonesia to Louisiana, Northern Ireland, South Africa, and in the process, reimagine philanthropy and redefine the impact a former president can have on the world. So there you've got Citizen, my life after the White House. Okay, that wraps up our preview of fall. I hope you found books to love. These are my 28 bets on selections so far. Anything I haven't written a blurb about, you won't see here, but there are 28 so far. We never know what I'm going to be at the end of the year. Last year it was 44. We'll see where I end up this year. There'll be a contest at the end of the year where somebody wins all of my bets on selections. Other people win portions of them. We're amalgamating the books at my house right now. And let me tell you, there are piles of books all over the place. Next, those of you who might be new to us, we have our Book Reporter Talks to videos and podcasts on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Interviewed recently Chris Whitaker, TJ Newman, Dawn Tripp, Amy Neff, coming up, Laura Dave, and Jean Hanff Korowitz. and many more to come through the end of the year. We've been doing contests. Yes, we've been doing contests during the year. Usually the contests go up on a Tuesday or Wednesday. They're 24-hour contests. You enter, you have 24 hours. You get a newsletter or find it on the site. 24 hours to enter the contest. That's it. It's over 12 in the afternoon. So the next day at noon, it's done, and you have just that time to enter. So we've got some terrific books. We've already given some fabulous giveaways and looking forward to doing more. Next, for our Bookaccino Live evening event, we're going to have where we do our book group. We're going to have Shelley Reed, who's going to discuss Go as a River, which is an international bestseller sold around the world, and it's a Bookreporter Bets on Pick. I had the pleasure of seeing Shelley when I was in Colorado recently. The book takes place in Colorado, which is a place I love. So many of you have read the book. If you haven't read it yet, yes, we're talking to her next Tuesday, the 24th, but you know what? It's a short book. You can get through it. It's really brisk. Shelley's fabulous, absolutely fabulous. You'll want to meet her. And sign up is available on Bookreporter and Reading Group Guides right now. And we're also, for October's Bookaccino Live book group event, we're announcing it now. Amanda Peters is going to discuss The Berry Pickers, which is a national bestseller, also another Bookreporter Bets on Selection. We're going to use that on Tuesday, October 29th at 8 o'clock. And sign up is available. We've created a new page at tbrnetwork.com/events. And we're going to be putting all our events on there so that people can find them very, very quickly. Besides them being in the newsletters, things that are further out, we're also going to make sure we have on that site. So join us next for an evening event. Our next evening event will be where Bookreporter reviewers are going to talk about their favorite books of 2024. It's going to be on Wednesday, December 11th at 8 o'clock. So that'll be our next evening event. And yes, we will be doing again when in January, we'll be doing a look at winter titles because we realize that a lot of people like to come on in the evening and hear about these titles. So I believe that's the thing that's next. Okay, and our next Bookaccino Live Preview afternoon event, for those of you who are available or can sneak away, that will be for books releasing October 8th through the 5th and a peek ahead at December, Wednesday, October 9th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that wraps up this evening presentation. We thank so many of you for joining us tonight. If you're with us live, you will receive note in a little while with information on where you can go answer a survey about the books you're most looking forward to reading from tonight's presentation. And from there, we will be selecting at least 3 winners, maybe more, seeing a little pile of books around here, that will receive books from us as an appreciation for participating in the survey. We always like to see what you like to read, so thank you so much. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tom, you want to jump back on and say goodnight? Pop back on for a sec. Yeah. Yep. Our fabulous editorial director, everybody, Tom Donadio, if you haven't met him before.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope you have a lot of additions to your TBR list for sure.
And I'm only 11 minutes over, Tom. Only 11 minutes.
Not bad, I mean, these were 55 books that you that you presented. It's impressive that you were able to and not like rush through them. I mean, you presented all of them, very impressed.
Thank you so much. Thank you for helping me pull this together. And one of our interns worked on this presentation as well?
Yeah, we had different interns work on them since a lot of these were from other presentations. So Riley and Orion were the 2, I think, who worked on all of these. So yeah, thank you to those interns who put together all of these slides. We couldn't do it without their help because as you can see there, we definitely, there's a lot of books that we include in these presentations. So we definitely need the help.
And I want to thank Francesca, who is our contest coordinator, who worked with me to send out this invitation to literally thousands of people and to alert them to our fall lineup of presentations that we're doing. So we did that the other day, and thank her for that. Anybody who hasn't signed up for our events newsletter, where you can always hear about the events that are coming up, if you go to tbrnetwork.com and go to newsletters, there's a page there where you can go and sign up for our events newsletter. So thank you to everybody for joining us. Here's to a great fall of reading.